Well, good morning. Nice of you to join me. First of all, I want to say, on a serious note, I really appreciated the concern that so many of you uh, manifested regarding the patch on my eye. Uh, that was because I had cataract surgery. Now, I like to talk a lot about history. Some of you like it, some of you don't, but I find it's illustrative. It's sort of we trace our trail as human beings through this veil of tears we call life. So, when I was a kid, cataract surgery was a big deal. In fact, most people didn't get it. And if you had cataracts at some point in time, we all get them. You just gradually lost your eyesight until you were essentially blind. When they did do cataract surgery, if my recollection uh, is correct on all this, and I'm not saying it is, but my recollection is that it was a very serious matter, and they actually used a scalpel and they cut away the cornea. And of course, the cataract is there's a lens behind the cornea, which is the focusing lens. The cornea is just a protective lens. Behind that is the focusing lens, which focuses your eye, the light that comes through your eye. It focuses back to the back of the eye where it reads it. So, and when you're nearsighted or farsighted, it's because of the shape of the eye. And if the eye is too long, which mine was, you can get nearsighted. And depending upon how long it is, it can be severe. And mine was, I was like legally blind. So they used to have to take the cornea out with a scalpel, and then somehow get the lens behind the original lens out, and then try to sew the cornea back in. And it was a mess. It was very dangerous and unpleasant. So now it's a nothing operation. But more significantly, I am now able to see without glasses or contact lenses for the first time since I was 6 years old. So I know what you're thinking. So that's why Ed wasn't a professional athlete. Yes, that's the only reason. In fact, a little known fact that I graduated, I'm Irish, and I graduated from the University of Michigan long before Tom Brady. And if I'd had decent eyes, I would have been the big star that he is today. That's right. No question about it in my mind. But I'm not, and I wasn't. And it's all because of this. Now that my eyes are perfect, I'm thinking of maybe going back and pursuing a career in professional football. I'm 80. I've got a good 5 or 6 weeks left of me. Yeah, it could be big time. All right, enough of that nonsense. So, but it's because what they did when they took out the bad lens, which was all full of gunk, and that's why we can't see it. It was amazing. I mean, just the color alone that I'm seeing is like, and people told me this, but I didn't quite know. It just jumps out at you. So, and I can read things like the speedometer dial in my car, which maybe I won't get as many tickets. Yeah, I will because I don't care. But I can read it now. I couldn't read it before. I could read it at night when it was all lighted up, and when the daytime I couldn't read the damn thing. So I can read that. I can read the things on the movies where they tell you this is what this movie's all about. Now I can read about it and avoid those movies, which I wish I'd known that a long time ago. So because they put a corrective lens in there, I paid for it, pretty decent money, but now it was like it was worth every penny of it. Now I don't need glasses. I threw them away. I know what you're thinking. Did you really throw them away? No, not yet. But I got a trip planned to Lourdes. And you know how you go to Lourdes with Our Lady of whatever it was, Our Lady of Lourdes, I guess, or Fatima? I don't know. I can't keep all these saints straight. And they've got like a grotto underneath, and it's full of crutches. All these people went out there and they got cured miraculously, and they threw their crutches away. I'm going there with my glasses and my contact lenses, and I'm going to go down there, and I don't have to be cured because I'm already cured. And I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to throw my glasses in there, I'm going to throw my contact lenses in there, and it's going to be a major event. Be sure to watch it. I'll probably record it and I'll put it right here on this program. Yep, right. My glasses will be right up there hanging over some idiot's crutches. And incidentally, most of the people that left their crutches there tried to get them back, and the people at Lourdes wouldn't give them back. That's the kind of people they are. But I don't want to criticize these people. I mean, they got a saint going for them. It's hard to complain about that. But this is a modern miracle. This is amazing. Here I am at an age I'm not going to reveal. Um, Shut up, Francois. You're lying. And they're not listening to you anyway. You're just a stupid dog. So, okay, you're not a stupid dog. You're just, okay, you're not a dog. Will you knock it off? I'm trying to talk to my fans here. I'm so sorry for that. So, here we are, talking about my contact lenses. No, but really, in all seriousness, it's amazing. So I got these corrective lenses, and now I open my eyes, and I'm like, what? I wake up in the morning, I can actually see everything, and I don't have to look for glasses, or my contact lenses aren't all foggy and scratching, and I have to take them on and clean them and drop them and lose them and down the drain. And none of that. I'm a new man. No, I look it too. Okay, that's enough about me. But I just wanted to tell you, thanks for your concern. It turns out this was probably the best thing that's happened to me since the last time I had a martini. For breakfast, yes, that was me. That was I. Excusez-moi. Grammar police. So, I want to talk about something serious. So, I want to talk about a case with which you may not be familiar. But the case is Worcester versus Georgia. So I know what you're saying, but Worcester versus Georgia, would it have to do with the Worcester sauce? Or did it have to do with the Worcester? No. It was a case in the 1832. 1832, okay? Which was 100 years before Roosevelt was elected president. Why does that matter? It doesn't. I just thought that was an interesting factoid. Just like Lincoln was elected 100 years before John Kennedy. Another interesting factoid. So, that case, Worcester versus Georgia, was important because of what Andrew Jackson said. Andrew Jackson was president. And what he said was, the Chief Justice has made his decision, now let's see how he can enforce it. Dun! Well, it turns out that case didn't have anything to do with the federal government. It was a dispute involving a Cherokee Nation and whether or not the Cherokee Nation in Georgia could be subject to the laws of the state of Georgia. And the decision said no. So it had nothing to do with Andrew Jackson, but he just wanted to be heard on the matter. So basically what he was saying was, forget Marbury versus Madison, which is, you're familiar with that case. And if you're not, you look it up. I'm not going to tell you about it. But Marbury versus Madison, here I go. I'm like Trump, right? I say I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do something, and then I do it. So Marbury versus Madison was where the Supreme Court said, essentially, we're the law of the land. We will determine if a statute is valid or not. We will determine what a statute means. We will determine whether or not it's constitutional. That's our job. And so what Jackson was saying was, I don't care if it's your job or not. You can't enforce it. So get lost. So what's happened as a result of that? That created really uncertainty in this country where we had three co-equal branches of the government and it was supposed to act as checks and balances on each other. Well, if you take away the power of the court to determine what is going to be legal or not legal, and if the court comes in and says, I think that statute is unconstitutional, and the president says, I don't care what you say, I'm going to enforce it anyway, then what you've done is you've eliminated the power of one of the co-equal branches of the government, and they're no longer co-equal. So it's a scary thought because it goes to the idea of totally undermining our structure of government. And that's what the Trump administration is up to today. And that should scare the bejesus out of everybody. And if you're a Republican who's inclined to vote for Trump because you don't like DEI or some such nonsense, I don't like it either. But think about what this means for our country if the president can basically say, I couldn't care less what the court said. So, and we're seeing this all over the place. The most dramatic example today, of course, is that the guy from Maryland who was picked up off the streets and thrown in a conveyance and taken to El Salvador, where he was thrown into the slammer without any opportunity to be heard. And it turns out he was here legally. He was here on asylum. He was granted asylum, and one of the conditions of asylum was that he was in this country because he was not to be returned to El Salvador because of a legitimate fear for his safety and his life. And instead, they pick him up and they send him to a prison in El Salvador. And then in the hearing about this, the Justice Department lawyer admitted it was a mistake, and of course he caught hell for that once he got back with that, what's her name, from Florida. She's cuter than she ought to be, considering what a moron she is. But anyway, so she raised hell with him and put him basically on leave because he didn't stand up for the government. But of course he had nothing he could say on behalf of the government because it was a mistake. Or it was whatever it was completely contrary to a previous decision by the courts. So, not by the courts, I'm sorry, his determination of status by the immigration, by the INS. So, that guy's back there. And the Supreme Court just the other day said, look, you need to do everything you can to expedite his returning from South Salvador to the United States. Now, most of you probably know already, but in case you don't, the government under Trump is spending tens of millions of dollars, giving it to the government of El Salvador to finance the Salvador keeping in their jail the people that we're sending to them for that purpose. Basically, we're renting space in their jails. And all the president has to do is say, listen, we mistakenly sent somebody there, just, send them back. He won't do it. And they give this nonsensical bullshit that, well, it's we're powerless to do anything because they're under the jurisdiction of the country of El Salvador. That's ridiculous. And so the court said, you're supposed to do everything practicable to bring that back. Now, the district court judge is going to say, okay, what have you done? And they're going to say, we haven't done anything because we can't. Now, what that's doing is it's giving the finger to the district court judge, it's giving the finger to the Supreme Court, and it's basically saying, we'll make our own laws. And that's right there with Andy Jackson and Worcester versus Georgia. And it's like that people have been tiptoeing around that decision, that statement by Andrew Jackson, ever since he made it in 1832. Because every president we've had has understood the significance of ignoring the Supreme Court's decisions. Now, what's in my lifetime, probably the most dramatic example of an administration which was told to back off by the Supreme Court and did so. And you know what case I'm talking about? I'm talking about Youngstown Sheet and Tube versus Sawyer. When Truman was president. What do you mean, what? Youngstown Sheet and Tube v. Sawyer. It just rolls right off the tongue. So Harry Truman, during the Korean War, said, they were doing something he didn't like, raising the price of steel or not producing. So he sent the government to take it over as an emergency measure during wartime. The Supreme Court 5 minutes later said, that's illegal, you can't do it, turn it back. Truman could easily have said, hey, you're not telling me how to run foreign affairs. You're not telling me how to deal with a wartime emergency. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I have the power to do it, and you can't stop me. He could easily have done that. Trump probably would have done it. Instead of that, Truman says, yes, sir, and he backed off immediately. And that further solidified the importance of respecting the decisions of the federal courts. Now, let's get back to the fact that it was the district court judge that is now being responsible for handling these things. And the Supreme Court incidentally also said that if you're going to grab somebody and throw them out of the country, you first have to give them the right to be heard, due process. They didn't do that either. So it's like they're just inching and sometimes not so much inching to undo such an important principle of our governmental structure. And it's like the ghost of Andy Jackson is alive and well in the West Wing of the White House. Second example, I have a client that I represented many years ago, and he was of Cuban descent. His parents were actually Cubans, and they were American citizens. He was of Cuban descent, and his wife was Cuban. He met her and married her in Cuba, and then he was trying to bring her into this country. And she was entitled to, but she had to appear for a questioning and a health exam and all this, that, and the other. So, an interview. We closed we closed the embassy in Havana in the meantime. So they were holding these things in different islands, more or less near Cuba. And every time she'd have to go to one of these interviews, it cost a lot of money. Her husband was paying for it, and she'd get there, and they would she'd sit around there for 3 weeks paying in a hotel, and then they would say, oh, well, we don't have time to get to you this time. And this went on for like 3.5 years. And finally they came to me and said, Mr. O'Connor, can you do something to help us? And I said, well, I could, but you have this horrible accent and I cannot understand the word you're saying. And they said, okay, well, we'll go somewhere else. I said, no, I'm just kidding, come back here, it's okay, we can speak. Hablamos en español, así se puede hablar en español, y si me entiendes en español, no tenemos problema. I speak Spanish. So, I sued Joe Biden. I didn't sue Joe Biden personally, I sued his Secretary of State. Sued him in Washington, D.C., in the federal district court there. And about a week after I served the complaint, I get a call from the U.S. attorney. Hey, listen, can you back off of this thing? And don't make us file an answer right now. We're going to take care of this. So, 2 days later, I get a call from my client. Hey, they just gave her interview and she passed with flying colors. And I said, really, where is she now? He said she's right here with me in Florida. So, sometimes, you file a lawsuit, you get some results. So, fast forward, just the other day, I get a call from the mother of this client of mine. She says, I got a nephew here. And he's here, and he came in under the Biden program, the parole. And, not parole, it's, what do they call it? Anyway, whatever it is, they were allowed to come in from Cuba, Venezuela, a couple other countries, and they're allowed to stay here for a couple of years, during which time they could apply for whatever relief they wanted to apply for. So this Kristi Noem, you remember her? She's the one who shot her puppy because he wasn't aggressive enough. Sends a letter to my client and a few thousand other people, and she says, we have terminated that Biden program. And so now you're told to get the hell out of here. You've got 5 days to file to respond to what we're telling you. And if you don't, and we have to throw you out, you'll never be allowed to apply to it for admission ever again. And we'll arrest you and yada, yada. It's this nasty letter they sent. So out that goes. My client's mother calls me and she's in tears because her nephew is here and he's applied for this special program for Cubans, and you have to be here for a year and a day. He was here for more than a year. He applied for the program. He was in the process of going through it, and suddenly he gets this letter. He's being told, basically, you're just being thrown out of the country. So I looked into it and found out that if you have already applied for a different relief, they can't throw you out until that issue has been resolved. So I responded to the INS on his behalf, and haven't heard back. But the other day, the administration said in court exactly what I said in my papers. So, okay, so that's not so bad, right? The other day, a federal district judge stopped that termination of the Biden program. You can't do it. It violates all kinds of laws and constitutional protection and this, that, and the other. And so she issued a temporary injunction and stopped it, which means all those people who were here on parole were now entitled to continue to stay here and can't be removed as the way they said they were going to do it in the letter. The letter is basically null and void. So Kristi Noem, not to be outdone, apparently posted something on the official webpage of the INS and said, it actually was a department. She's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, so which the INS is under Department of Homeland Security, saying that it doesn't matter what the judge said, the letter still applies. So here we have, this is just a direct slap in the face of the federal judge. Now, first of all, let me get one thing clear in your minds, because you may not do federal litigation. So, if a federal district judge tells the government to stop doing something or to do something, that applies to the entire United States government. And so to get the Trump people saying, well, how can you possibly do that? How come one lousy judge can shut down our whole program and dictate to the entire administration what we can do and can't do? Because that's been done that way for years. Republicans have done it. Democrats have done it. It's the law. And the Supreme Court has upheld that for time and again. And the theory being, look, a federal district judge can issue an injunction, but you can, if you're the government, you can take an immediate appeal. You can bypass the Court of Appeals. You can come right to the Supreme Court and get it resolved at that level. So it's just a stopgap, and it stops processes in the meantime. Particularly an injunction, the idea is you stop it before harm can be done. And so then the administration has this right to seek an expedited appeal, and if it's important enough, the court will grant it. So it's not like it's the end of the line; it's the beginning of the line. But that court's decision is the law until it's overturned. And here you've got Kristi Noem basically out there saying, I don't care what some stupid judge said, I'm the law. And I'm telling you this, those are two major instances, and if you're not worried about the future of this country and its basic structure, you ought to be. You ought to be, because you've got a president in there now who's basically, and his henchmen, these people are the most unqualified group of government cabinet officers I have seen in my many years of dealing with government officials. I've been in litigation with the IRS. I've been in litigation with the Department of Homeland Security, with I don't want to go through all of them, but a whole bunch of them, and I know how they work. And by and large, contrary to the rumors being spread around by the administration, the people that work there are decent, hardworking people. Been against them time and again. Been against their lawyers time and again. Been largely successful time and again, including the Justice Department in an antitrust case, which we won in the United States Supreme Court. So these, these are not bad people. They're just wrong a lot of times. But now you've got people in there who are just running these departments, woefully unqualified. Take a look at Pete Hesgazes, or whatever the hell his name is, who's the head of the Defense Department, the entire Defense Department, in the hands of a guy whose top rank was major. Hell, my dad was a full colonel and later a civilian equivalent brigadier general. I was a civilian equivalent of a major myself. You think my dad would no more have asserted that he was qualified to run the Defense Department? I barely think I'm qualified to run the Defense Department. I'd like to give it a shot, though. Couldn't do much worse. And I can tell you this. A lot of people who've been nasty to me over the years, they'll be really sorry. Especially you bill collectors. But this isn't about me. Okay, it is about me a little bit. Enough. So, I'm just pointing that out because I like to talk to you about things that maybe you're not getting straight from the news, or maybe you're not getting them from the talk shows, or maybe you're not getting them from the media, social media. I like to put a slightly different slant on things and give you some information which relates to my background and my experience and my knowledge about some of these areas that hopefully will stimulate some thought. And if I did, write to your congressman. And don't spare the swear words, okay? Let them have it with both barrels. And on that note, I think I'm going to take a nap. Bye. Oops, I'm going to turn it off.